Good evening. It's the 21st of May, Thursday, 9:30 p.m. Irish time. It means if you're watching us, you've nothing else better to be doing. Welcome to Broadsheet on the Telly on this fine May day. Joining us tonight, we have our man in Porto, Luke Brennan.
Hey, Neil.
How's it going, Luke? How are you?
Good, all good. Glad to have actually been out for a meal this week. So that's my news. I was in a real restaurant. It was great.
How did that come about? Actually, we'll ask you that in a moment. Let's also say hello to our celebrity accountant keeping the state of Crumlin together, Vanessa Foran. Hi, Vanessa.
Hiya. Hi, everybody. State of Crumlin is right. Every house in Crumlin is immaculate. They're all done up. All the window boxes, paint, new curtains. Every house is immaculate.
I was referring to the state as in the nation state. Crumlin are going to be separatists.
Moving from the People's Republic of Cork to the state of Crumlin.
Yeah, well, like declare it a republic just as easily.
Free state. Let's call it a free state.
Yeah, call it that.
Luke, were you breaking curfew and going out to a restaurant? Is there an underground restaurant scene, or is this legal?
No, it's legal now. Restaurants this week opened up at 50% capacity, cafes and restaurants in Portugal. So, it was very nice. I think they're maybe sort of rushing it a little bit in that they're very eager to sort of get the tourist trade and show the world, show Europe at least, that they're ready for business. I was just looking at the statistics on it, and I think 19% of GDP in Portugal comes from tourism. So, and that's huge. It's like twice what Ireland is, and employment is like 25%. So, a year without tourism is a year with an extra 25% unemployment. It's chronic, and I suppose, they can't really rely all that much on internal tourism, because a lot of basically all the sort of Northern Europeans sort of spend all the money. The average wage in Portugal is like half what it is in Ireland. So it's they hope for the French, German, English, Irish, etc. Coming down and spend the money, and so they're trying to get that going. It was lovely. I went out and pizza and a nice cocktail and a nice terrace, and it was 22, 23 degrees. Nicely gone. It was spot on. Thoroughly recommended.
You love dipping our nose in it there, Luke, between your good weather and your...
It's all ahead of you,
Well, if we get invited there, you can have your wedding in Porto. Easy.
Ireland are sort of doing a great job. I can see with the COVID, and they seem to be really sort of cracking down. I think Portugal, might suffer from. it's nice now, but I could be laughing at the other side of my face, as I say, with a second wave here. If they, we were walking around and we saw a sort of like a park full of people, having a few beers, sitting around, no one wearing masks, a lot of them less than 2 meters away from each other. And I think that, I just think that that'll come back and bite you. I think it's sort of they're too early out of the blocks, and it's dangerous.
But Denmark didn't seem to get that second wave. That was prolonged anyway.
I do think part of that is probably down to, like, the Danes are quite cold, and there's not a lot of hugging and kissing, and they're probably usually 2 meters away from each other all the time anyway.
Well, it's down to meter, I think, and the schools are back. But yeah, I'm beginning to wonder. You see, I think we've reached peak lockdown. I think it's definitely cracking here, and I think people are now kind of getting to the stage where they're behaving like it's stage 3/4. And I'm beginning to wonder now. Now, I think it's an Irish thing as well, because I suppose human beings are genetic. Mother Nature evolved human beings to be social. Mm-hmm. And in the main to be in packs, kind of, or but the Irish are particularly social. Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't want to kind of send up the old troop and the trope or whatever you want to call it. Like a Paddy can walk in anywhere in the world and start a conversation, usually, you know. And I think we've reached that stage now where we've done it now. We've done our best now for you. Like, just get us open, because I think if there's any further delays now, I beginning. The analogy is like, it's like getting my late nanny Lulu, who was 87 when she died. It's like asking her to give up the fags at 86. It's just not going to happen for what's left of it. Like, I think we've gone past even. We'll keep up the social distancing, I think, but I think, you know, supporting it now, I think, is gone. And I think especially after, like, Magda, you were talking about going to the restaurant. Well, we were treated to drive through traffic jam yesterday. Kylemore is actually in Dublin 12, and it really pissed me off. I think it was great people were able to go out and get a McDonald's, because it was like a treat, because they hadn't been out in so long, you know. But just the idea of that, the big corporates are opening, you know, all the supermarkets are open, and so they're selling clothes and that, and all the small boutiques are closed, and the independent chef-owned restaurants are still closed, and the small coffee shops and baker-owned sandwich bars and bakeries are still closed, but the Aldi, Lidl's and Dunn's, and now McDonald's, one of the biggest, are allowed to open. And I'm beginning to feel, and now at the start of all this, I did feel there was an unfairness, and there was at the very, even before the lockdown became more formal, you could sense the inequality of our society anyway. And it's really crystal clear now, you know?
Well, of course, you know, like a lot of the sort of the regulations and the restrictions, they put a bigger burden on a small business. Small business, you know, is a lot of time, you know, a one-man operation and a few people helping out. And I was talking to, you know, I was saying the restaurants, you know, can open here, but I was talking to, I have some friends who own a restaurant down here, and I was saying, oh, you must be happy, you know, 18th that you're able to open up. And they were saying, well, you know, they gave us a book about things we have to do, you know, and they're wondering, would it even be worth it to open up at 50%, everyone 2 meters apart, like everyone wearing masks, everyone having to like they have to sort of disinfect the place, like I think 6 times a day. They have to, like,
this is in a restaurant, is it? Or yeah.
They have to take, you know, they have to have you know, alcohol at the door. They have to have alcohol at the toilets. They're not allowed to have any menus that you can't just sort of take away. You can't have salt and pepper on the table, all these things, you know. And then this like how they deal with, you know, taking away the plates and the cups and whatever. So, you know, the sort of the administration and sort of rules and regulations
But this is part of the new norm, the new normal that we're all going to get used to as quickly as we got used to lockdown anyway.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
But it's a huge burden, right, on a small business.
Oh, it is.
Have to, you know, that's like, you know, it's like, and then they have to, you know, there's you know, like doubt and uncertainty with, you know, sort of like VAT. They want trying to get that down and all that sort of stuff as well, and they just don't know.
But, you know, if you look at it this way, right, Neil, like as well, do you know, like the way now all the GA is cancelled, there's only horse racing behind closed doors. There's no concerts this year, like there's no electric picnic, or, you know, all those large scale events and outdoor events are cancelled anyway. Most people aren't traveling like abroad. And I'm wondering, like, the pressure on, like, this thing, particularly in the UK, about the schools, you know, getting the schools open. And then you had your one Katie Hopkins calling teachers fat and lazy about not going back to schools. I wonder, should we just kind of, like, try and open up a bit quicker, but actually keep the schools shut and bring the schools back in August?
Well, we have
Just
to bear
to
in
me-
mind, though, that studies are showing that the risk of transmission with kids is small, whatever the appropriate word isn't as big as we thought. And now we're seeing the INTO now raising issues with reopening. I don't know what that means. It's kind of new. It's been in the papers for weeks, but it certainly came to a head today from what I'm reading.
I heard
it's just going to cause us issues whenever they do choose to reopen, be it September or what have you. But certainly, and I've said this on the show already, the impact that this is having on obviously the children's education, but also working parents, single parents, people who are looking after children with special needs, without these appropriate resources, schools, daycare, whatever, creches, whatever it may be, it's very detrimental, and it can't continue. I just don't get why. We had a day where Tony Houlihan dismissed, some of these studies on, kids being reopening schools, in the same day where Leo said I can't remember the exact quotes, but Leo had referenced it in one of his press conferences. Later that day, it was being dismissed. So it's causing a lot of frustration for parents.
But I think there's frustration as well between sort of the political side of the conferences, or the NPHGT or whatever, the politicos and the Department of Health officials and the Department of Health team. I'm beginning to see one crowd are just fed up with the other, or they're like treating them like children now. Mind you, they are, but like there's starting to be a friction between them.
Yeah, and the more that friction comes out and is shown in the public eye, again, credibility is eroded, and people are already at the end of their tether in terms of compliance. We're seeing that out on the streets. The messaging now is becoming two-sided. And I'm just saying from a perception perspective, I'm not saying from reality. On one hand, we're being told transmission in the community is squashed. There was a quote from Houlihan there the other day, or yesterday, the day before. But at the other time, we're being talked about the need to be still very strict, face masks in public and all the rest. So there's a disconnect in the messaging. And if you couple that with the differing opinions within government departments, Joe Soap and Mary Bloggs, who are on the brunt of it, there's only so much we can take. I mean, you only have to look around your estates, people out exercising, the social distance walks. I mean, I go out running. I'm one of those.
You can't sit down. You can't be still for a second.
I can't. But I'm a good runner. I'll get onto the road and risk my life. Even though the studies show that you're at no risk from a runner running by you, but whatever. But I'm seeing less and less people go single file on the path now when you're going. Groups cluster together. Clearly, people who don't live in the same house.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
I've noticed that in the supermarkets as well. People are starting to kind of waiting for someone to be done with rooting through the veg or something.
So fatigue, whatever you want to call it, and as you say, Vanessa, we're not designed for this kind of living. And the was a prime time did the thing on what bars could look like with Joe Duffy. Oh, geez, could you imagine? Joe Duffy and who was it? Miriam. And they did the mock pub thing. They used a bar from Fair City. It was prime time, I think it was on. And Joe was sitting, I can't remember the other presenter's name, but Joe was sitting 2 meters apart, and Claire was sitting at the bar and the barman behind. And of course, the whole thing of you have to stay seated in the pub, no standing up, no going to the bar. And oh my God, geez, I bet you didn't have to deal with that, Luke, in Portugal, sitting out in the sunny terrace. Yeah. So, people are looking at that. I mean, people are gagging to go back to the pub, or they want to go on their holidays. And on one hand, you've got Harris saying, look, foreign travel 2020 is probably out the window, quarantine, yada, yada, yada. Then you have Leo saying to the EU president, we're hoping to get travel back up, flying. We're hoping to be back flying in August. Meanwhile, the Med countries have detailed plans and trying to get tourists in. Whether that works or not, it's a different story. But you have all of this disconnect going on in the messaging and the communication, and there's only so much of it before things
well, there
break.
has to be some connection somewhere. Like when I say connection, I mean to repair the disconnect, because I mean if it's Spain, and I'm guessing Portugal is the same, they're allowing people in, but they're only allowing people in on an in and out basis, like business travel, not staying for a fortnight. And swanning around Porto.
Yeah, they're not actually they're not. Well, I don't think either Spain or Portugal aren't letting people in yet. The borders are still closed. Even the border between Spain and Portugal is closed, I think, until the 15th of June. So while they, so they're trying to gently start the whole thing going with just internal traffic. But I'd say like one thing that surprised me, I mean, you guys are going to be going through the experience of like cafes and restaurants opening soon enough. But like when that happens, I mean, I'm sure a lot of the cafes, restaurants were thinking at last, they're going to have customers coming in. People are still very sheepish, like, people might be asking for a pint, but like at the same time, there's just like, you even feel it yourself. You're walking around and you're sort of looking in and you're sort of going, I mean, if it's an outdoor place or it's got seats outside, you think, well, that looks okay. But you don't really want to go into places, you don't want to be sitting in a dark room where, or even a well-lit room where potentially is a haven for viruses and whatever. There's a natural disinclination.
There is, you're absolutely right, and it seems we're very much a split nation. Certainly in Ireland, from what I'm reading anecdotally on message boards or comment sections, there are those who are just using travel because that's one of my personal interests. There are those who are saying they're not going to set foot on a plane until there's a vaccine. Now, some people throw out like until next year, but in reality, that group are not going to get on a plane unless there's a treatment, a cure, or a vaccine. And then there's the rest of us, people like me, who are just, put me on a plane, let me go wherever I want to go.
If I'm going, I'm going. Do you know this way?
I'll
like
wear the face mask.
If the virus is going to kill me, it's going to kill me. I'm not, like when your time's up, your time's up.
Well, maybe not saying that now. I'm not saying that now, Vanessa. But there are those who are saying,
I'm not going to go around licking the handles of the fucking on the Ryanair flight. You know what I mean? Like our behavior, we've learned all new manners now. Everywhere we go, we're and we go everywhere, with something. Like my bag here has a mask, it has it has wipes, it has gloves, it has everything.
I wonder if things like influenza are dying off a little bit because of this newfound love of washing hands and taking care. I'm sure there's lots of viruses out there that we're doing all right, but now that this like whole corona thing came along, it's actually made their life a little bit harder, even though they're not as bad as corona.
I suppose that the social distancing and the cancellation of events and stuff would have would have killed off what was generally passed around week in, week out. From colds.
Wasn't there talking about was it like polio or something like that? There are some diseases which people who work in the area say are actually more significant and actually doing more damage, and by focusing on coronavirus, we're actually ignoring them and causing as many deaths as we would. So there's that sort of stuff happening as well.
Well, I did as mentioned. I squeezed it in at the last mouthful of the show a while back. That was a question in the chat bit about what's the next big thing, and I actually think the next big thing is the surge in all the things that were parked, like screening, all the sort of the hip replacements and the say stent operations, and all the day surgery stuff like vascular surgery and pain management. All that has been stopped, and I think that's the next big surge, because our waiting lists will be like we've never seen before, and not just up 10 or 20%, they'll have doubled, because effectively the workforce that's available now to start tackling the waiting list isn't going to be there either. Do you know what I mean? The whole infrastructure of the healthcare system and healthcare management has changed.
Yeah. It's very tough. I mean, my own mother is she's 79 now, and like just something like she's got a toothache, and it turned into a bit of an abscess, wasn't able to see a doctor or like a dentist. I think eventually got to see one, but got antibiotics, couldn't really sort of get proper treatment, and 3 weeks of when you've got toothache, you've got a toothache, right? It's a pain, and to have to suffer for 3 weeks is terrible.
Listen, I'd have just gone straight down to James's A&E.
Yeah, I have an uncle who needs his hip done, and he's in a bad way. And, I mean, you wonder, he was just at the point where he's getting assessed, and he would have been sort of on the road into it. And now, will it be 6 months? Will it be a year, before he actually gets it sorted out now? It's
and even if he does have private medical insurance, that's all parked as well.
Yeah. But so what's going to happen with that, do you think? I'm seeing a great reduction in my fee, which is nice on one hand, but on the other hand, I don't have to worry about, touch wood, any other illnesses at the moment. But how do we think that's going to play out with the private medical healthcare?
I don't
Longer
know,
term.
because the whole agreement with for the private beds is shady anyway. So that's a tribunal, or certainly a public accounts committee convening later down the line, and not having the contracts for the consultants, the private healthcare consultants, is another gap. It's in the decision making, and you look at the increase in the National Children's Hospital net. Like, we've actually now effectively will have lost control of our healthcare system, and by virtue of the fact that the private medicine now has been ran roughshod over, that won't be there to fill the gap either. Yeah. Possibly, but I mean, all the signals are there that they went in and bought up all the beds, but didn't facilitate for the manpower to provide the services. Yeah. And the private medical consultants are pretty much putting the foot down, you know. And I've worked with these people, and they don't give in. They'd rather work for free than cut their rate.
Vanessa, do you think the private healthcare people generally are pissed off at this stage that they feel they were treated badly?
I think so, and I think they probably should have been consulted as well, and maybe not invited onto the NPET team, but I mean, they certainly would know how to take in. You see, the private sector would have been very used to dealing with public healthcare patients through the National Treatment Purchase Fund, and they're able to deliver more procedures quicker and cheaper anyway. And I listen, I have seen this with my own eyes. So this is a fact. This isn't all about the private sector are great and they deserved a better deal. But I think the first thing that put their nose out of joint wasn't that the department or the HSE went in to their owners, their hospital owners, and bought up all the beds, and then stopped them from seeing their own patients for the next 2, 3, 4 months. I think it was that they weren't actually consulted, that it was all about the Irish hospital consultants and not about the private consultants. I think that probably lifted them it's a bit like the nursing homes the nursing homes, they weren't brought in, and at the start of this either in January, February, it had to totally break out before they responded to dealing with the nursing homes. And in fact, Tiggy Daly from the nursing homes group had to challenge him and kind of take the fight to them, probably a bit more than he should have, but he did. And at least he woke them up a bit on it. And so maybe they should have been included in, because they would have they have skills as well. They could have offered something. And I think they probably should have been consulted. I think that's that's what I think is probably their biggest issue. But we will have effectively lost control of our public health care in this country because it's out of control. And if we thought it was bad a year ago, or even say in November, December, when even during the election, it wasn't just housing, it was trolleys, numbers on trolleys were hitting record levels. It's going to be way worse now. And I'm not just saying 20, 30% worse. I'm talking treble, 100%, 200% worse.
It'll probably be a while though as well before people will want to be going near hospitals just, over the next year or two. In the same way as there's a lot of people that wouldn't want to go on a plane until they have a vaccine. I think probably there's the same number of people, that same group.
I think, but see, I think a lot of that will die down. I think a lot of people will start to loosen up on that, because at the moment everyone is like literally in a greenhouse, and the top item on all the news is COVID, the lockdown, number of deaths. Like we're not getting enough. There's not enough talk about the numbers of recoveries, or even the completion of tests that are negative.
But I think that would compound. My theory is that kind of compounds people's desire to go, sure, it's grand now, lads, because we only see the number of cases in Ireland, which is whatever, 25,000, whereas in reality, I think 19 to 20,000 of those are cured or are over it. So, when you look at active cases and then the daily cases, I mean, if we're at a point where I think it was the 70s today, but if we're at a point where, you're talking less than 24 cases a day, I mean, eventually that over time, that's going to prompt people to kind of go, here, I'm off to see Luke in Porto.
Yeah, well, it seems that it's only like 20%, like the active cases are about 20% of what it was at the peak. That's what it seems.
And we know, certainly in Ireland, Luke, there was a statistic there the other day whereas 2% of people who are being tested are positive. And bear in mind that they have extended
2.5%.
Yeah, and they've extended the criteria for testing. So, I mean, you don't need to be a scientist to kind of read between the lines that, we're very lucky it didn't surge, it didn't reach a point, that the worst case scenario. Clearly, it's had a marked impact on a number of people's families and what have you. But we're lucky in the other respect, it didn't get to a point as bad as they were expecting.
Like the first few weeks, it was looking like there was this disaster scenario, and we didn't hit that. What I actually think is a bit, not to be looking for things to be worried about, but it's a little bit like, they say, when people have a car crash, it's not one thing, it's two things. It's like the person who, it's not the person, turning out, on a red light. It's the fact that somebody was like on the phone while that happened. It's the two things combined. And I think the world is kind of slightly, driving around on an early morning where there's dry ice on the road, with this pandemic. It sort of creates a scenario where, something else could go wrong. I mean, even in terms of sort of global tensions and, I think it's no coincidence that things are coming to a head with like US and China, and you're just creating a situation where a huge amount of pressure on someone like Donald Trump, who, isn't a particularly good man at dealing with, sort of difficult situations in an intelligent way. And you end up in a situation where, sort of he feels under pressure. He's already like saying lots of stupid stuff, but that goes further, and that sort of, pisses off, I don't know, someone in North Korea, and then they start sending something, test missiles into China, and all of a sudden the pandemic leads to something else.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it is. It's leading to everything is about Trump. Like 50% of the news, like, so not the Irish news, but like if you were looking at all the newscasts or what's coming into your feeds, 50% of it is Trump.
Yeah.
And then you between he was taking this hydroxychloroquine or whatever.
Yeah.
Or was he though?
Well, I suppose he could be taking it as a supplement. I don't think he'd be allowed to put himself in harm's way.
Yeah, so I mean,
the White House people would have stepped in.
Taken as a malarial, prophylactic. It's not a problem to take something like that, most likely. But he's just, it just seems like it's a stupid thing to do. There's no particular. But it's like you heard what he was saying about bleach. It was like listening to like a drunk 12-year-old, trying to explain something. Yeah,
but you know what? I the last few days, it's tweaked my interest in, because I would just switch off from listening to it. I just can't, and it's like when he's interested in listening to somebody, he's listening and he's absorbing information, and then when he's no interest at all, he's just no, you're a bad person, and he goes on. He if it's something he's interested in, he's interested in. If he's not, then that's it. He just leave the room. Like he's a typical spoiled child, actually, for a 70-odd-year-old man, and like he has more money now than he's ever going to spend. So I don't understand the need for the ambition. But like if you think about the whole this is now where Badger is going to probably start trolling me now, but the whole deep state thing, and it was all about that there was a deep state that was there to unseat Trump, and it was all around, and all this the whole QAnon. And I just realized Trump is doing everything that they got Obama for, you know, sort of using the FBI to infiltrate Trump's campaign, and, you know, during the last presidential election, and sort of spying on his campaign and interfering with it, and using you know, sort of the state resources in the FBI and national security to sort of interfere with the political campaign. Trump's, and I'm just realizing, so Trump is doing that now. Did you see him even just today at his press conference? He had two kind of stands, and he had there Arkansas and another state, and telling them how much that had been sent to them. Like it was pure campaigning. He was using the White House to run an election, which is exactly what Obama was doing, even though it was Hillary's campaign. But that's what they were blaming Obama for. Like he's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, electioneering. Yeah, I mean,
and then now he's even got the whole thing with Twitter, Facebook, and all these. You know the way they now automatically delete information that's that anything that says it's a fake pandemic or it's you know.
Yeah, well, the thing is,
stir bleach into your tea and you'll be fine. You know, these sorts of things. But when Trump does stuff like that, like, you know, injecting disinfectant, when he puts out a tweet or puts out a message on Facebook, they don't delete it.
Yeah.
But it's so like he's having a ball.
Yeah. Well,
like he is now the deep state. He is actually the deep state.
The thing is, right, that all this is, you know, kind of mildly entertaining and it's sort of interesting in a political sort of, you know, will he get elected or will he not sort of arena. But like, actually, I think there's something deeply worrying, like in the sort of situation that's coming about, because I mean, he's a deeply insecure man, and that's sort of launched him. I mean, you're asking, you know, why he is like this. I mean, why he has to be as rich as he is. I mean, he's obviously someone who is deeply insecure and has been sort of pushed into this situation because he really needs the power to feel okay. And he's now going to be in a situation where he's going to be put in a corner with the upcoming sort of like midterm elections, and they're going to be saying to him, look, you know, he's going to be up against the wall with, like, you know, if you don't really attack China, you know, you're not going to win this election. And like, he'll do anything, you know, he'll do anything to win that. There's nothing he won't do.
Oh, well, he has to win now, because in the last, getting on the ticket was his win.
Yeah.
That was his win. Then he actually won. I don't think he ever wanted the job at all. I just think he wanted, you know.
But just to back to your original point, though, Luke, about the global impact, because I know US and China is extreme, but just even looking at the EU, one thing that I've certainly seeing is the EU has a horrendous marketing team or communication team, because a lot of people were saying in the early days of this, where is the EU and all this with Italy and blah blah blah, and behind the scenes there was a lot of money being invested in handling the pandemic, and it wasn't very well communicated. And I think the real challenge the EU has now, or opportunity if you want to look another way, is in relation to travel. So the EU had, because Greece and to a lesser extent Italy and Spain, you know, accelerated that need to want to open their borders, you know, whether it's prematurely or not, time will tell. That kind of has put a gun to the EU's head to kind of step up to the plate and start to talk about borders. And we know Leo had that conversation recently with Ursula. Certainly from the EU doesn't want to infringe on the sovereignty of people, of nations and the borders and all the rest, but there's a real opportunity to show initiative in how this
could be a hero, to be like,
yeah,
you know, the EU can be heroic in this current situation. Like they're, you know, they've got plenty of money, and it doesn't really cost them all that much to you know, relatively, to actually bail out and solve the problems for all the people that have been complaining about them for so long. And, you know, sort of in a very sort of placid, sort of non-problematic, normal world. The EU are just like a monster, gobbling up money.
Well,
But now they're.
But they are investing. They are putting money into this, but they're
well, you
just not
see, I
publicizing
think
it.
they're. I was thinking a lot about this recently in the which I have nothing else to do. It's either that or eat cake, but like the EU, or back to its EC and then EEC, and then when it was the European Steel and Coal, right? It was effectively a co-op. It's set out as a co-op, and like it was a great big grand monster co-op.
The Butter Mountain and all that.
And then sort of self-interest and growth, special interests, but that came out by way of professional lobbying as well, and electioneering, and sort of populism in the last 20 years. Sort of it lost its way a bit, and I actually now think, as you say, it's a great opportunity for the EU to demonstrate, to go back to its roots as a co-op, and do something really important. And I think it at the very start of the COVID, when the pandemic became more clear, late December, early January, Merkel and Macron behaved in a way that was not in keeping with the cooperative movement. But they've rolled that back in and sort of kind of gone over and above to demonstrate that they shouldn't have behaved like this, and we're here now. And I think there is an opportunity for them, particularly Merkel, to sort of bring us all together and really demonstrate something that I don't know what it could be, but I think there's a great opportunity for the EU to prove that it does work. Now everyone has a clean sheet. Germany really should see, in one way, Germany can come out of this because they still have an industrial backbone. They have an industrial manufacturing, output that we don't, and we never have it. France pretty much the same, but they have very good infrastructure. Like there is an opportunity for the EU to go back to its roots and its founding ethos and prove it is a good idea, particularly the Eurozone.
But also, like, I mean, they need to get practical. Like what Spain are doing, I don't know if it's similar in Portugal, but Spain have this color-coded system that they're using in the country. And I think they had suggested it as something that should be done Europe-wise. And it's a fantastic system that they have. Then they police it, as you can imagine. The Spanish police it, very strictly. I don't know if we'd do it to the same degree here, but there's an opportunity for the EU to say, hang on, this is a system that could work. Let's roll this out. Let's put states, let's get states to abide by it. And then that would open up the skies, not necessarily sooner, but it would open up in a way that might instill confidence in people with traveling. And we stop getting this bullshit with the airlines of, when they're flying, or this thing of you have to wear a mask, so you can't drink or eat anything on a plane, or remove the middle seat, all that kind of crap that's been talked about, none of which, makes sense. And O'Leary is right in his comments about that. But the sooner we can get a clarity, the more the EU take the initiative there, the more it might improve consumer confidence, and more it might improve people's outlook. I don't know. It's the same thing we're seeing in Ireland and with how we're communicating things. But
the thing is, it could be really important. I mean, the cohesiveness now could be, like I said, I mean, they say that in economic terms, the reasons for the Second World War was really exactly what Vanessa was saying, that the Germany was, such an industrial power. It had developed this facility to make things and make money from making things. The UK were funding that, they were providing the money, and they were very happy with the situation where the Germans made all the stuff, and they provided the capital, and everyone was getting rich. But then when the Germans started making their own money, they didn't need the British anymore.
Well, you see, I think in Germany to this day, they still own their output. They still, Mercedes BMW.
But that change, right? That change that happened, that's very like what's happening now with China and the US, right? Where you had, 20 years ago, the economy of China was a third of the size of the US, and now it's neck and neck. It's huge growth. And I think China kind of has America in a bit of a chokehold economically by, pushing in all the sort of cheap stuff that place like Walmart are happy to sell off and just keep that money being sucked out of America. And Trump knows this, and he knows that the trouble is on the way, and coronavirus is hurting America more than China. So he wasn't probably thinking he'd have to deal with this, sort of being passed out by China, in the midterm elections. But it seems like he will, and that's the economics are very worrying.
And that's actually where being the EU can be very important.
Yeah, exactly.
Because ultimately, like 20, 30 years ago, longer. We would have called, actually, not even that, 15 years ago, or at the sort of 06, 07, 08, we'd have called Greece a basket case, Ireland a basket case. But in actual fact, America is the world's basket case now. I haven't been there. I was there. I did the whole Disneyland Universal thing not that long ago, actually. And you could actually see, like, America is actually is fucked. It really is. The amount of young people in mobility scooters. And then do you know what really used to piss me off? It's a bit like the clapping on the street now for the frontline workers. There'll be signs up, everywhere for our personnel, our armed forces go to the top of the queue, or they get 10% discount somewhere at something. I'm going, just fucking pay them a living wage. Like if you're that enamored and that proud of them, and even the infrastructure, like we think we've got potholes. Jesus, let's even no idea what it's like over there.
Look at Detroit. It's like a
I've been to Detroit. I've seen it. It's unreal. Like I went down one dual carriage, the equivalent of a dual carriageway, and on the left there was slums, like boarded up slums, and then on the right there was boarded up mansions. It was insane. And then where the Motown Museum is on that particular street, you've got, you can see how RoboCop was inspired by it, but you have huge factories, that are boarded up, broken windows and all the rest. It's crazy. And pretty much every single main road I was on, this was going back 3 years ago, every single main road I was on, there was traffic cones out because there was, roadworks and that. I think there was a local businessman who was trying to invest in Detroit as a city, but it was very easy to see how Trump went in there where Hillary didn't, and kind of said, look, I'm going to bring these jobs back. And people are like, well, fuck it, there's, we've had nothing else, so we might as well give them another stab. You can see how that easily happened.
But that was his campaign from day one, was that he went to the people that had 2 or 3 jobs. And he was able to put himself in front of them and say, all these, Harvard educated liberals have done nothing for you. And he appealed to them. He appealed to that. Yeah, well, whether they still believe he's delivering for them, that's up for the voters. But America, in my opinion, is the world's basket case. It's not like Liberia or Greece or.
Yeah, but I do think I do think that process has been speeded up. Even if you look at the 2007, 2008 financial crisis, that's America, right? But they say precipitated by sort of all the sort of cash available from China. That's what sort of made them invest in, like to have the banks investing in these properties for people who have no jobs, mortgages for everyone, regardless of whether they had no jobs or whatever.
Well, China owns most of its debt.
Yeah. They're very frugal. So, like I said, that's part of the chokehold, that China has America in, and it's not getting better. And the one sort of card that Trump had to get himself through that was the economy, and that's gone now.
But you're like, this goes back to what I said when we moved into this segment. It was by accident, Neil, sorry, was about Trump is actually the new Obama, the way he's campaigning at the moment. He's doing everything they criticised and they kicked Obama for, and they were right to. I mean, interfering in an election campaign, using government facilities. It's a bit like the fucking TDs here printing their election stuff on the printer. You're interfering with somebody's campaign, and he should have done it, and he got the slap on the wrist and whatever. But that's exactly what Trump is doing now. What is there news?
We have some comments from the chat pit that are worth getting.
They're telling me shut up, are they?
They're always telling you to shut up, Vanessa. So, but thanks to those who are commented in the chat. But if you're on our YouTube page, you can see the live chat there. So JDF Reality is of the view that Biden will be. No, sorry, I'm reading that wrong. JDF Reality is of the view Trump is going to get reelected. Sheila Figs Mars, Biden's going to be kicked off, and whoever's running mate will take over. Janet feels that USA needs that China's sales of rare earth metals for everything. Pretty much, it's where the majority are mined. And on the topic of the EU, JDF Reality is just pointing out that if EU citizens were asked by way of referendum if they would make more or less EU economic integration and federalization, how do they think they would vote?
I tell you how I vote. If I can buy a BMW in Ireland for the price I can buy it in Germany, we'll be.
It's typical of a celebrity accountant. Straight to the BMW, straight to the. Whereas Luke is probably just happy to be able to get a wedding dress, or a pair of brogues for his wedding at cheaper price in a different country with a lower VAT rate.
Well, I don't have a car, so I'm quite happy living in a city that has a good metro system. Although you can't use an awful lot, but it's a good. I'm a fan of walking. That's my thing.
You've got the weather though.
I'm all for walking as well. I've started walking. I'm just using the BMW as an example. If we're into it's like I can go and get a procedure in Barcelona. I can go and get my boobs done in Barcelona for a fifth of the price here.
Yeah. Or a house, for example. If you wanted
interest rates,
all this sort of stuff, the normal stuff, which is just scam in Ireland, right?
Well, VRT is a scam.
VRT, yeah.
Absolutely. And
sure.
Our healthcare, we know we're talking about how it's just gone off the scale.
Mortgage interest rates.
It was bad in the 80s anyway. Yeah. Mortgage interest rates, exactly. The stamp duty on family homes here is a disgrace.
Yeah.
Of course, I'd say the paddies would go for it in the morning. No doubt about it. I think they would. But then they'd have to go along with other things like a longer school year. They probably have to go with college fees, which I actually would support. Longer school year, I think people would adapt quite quickly to that. More apartment living. I think people would, that'd be something else they'd have to kind of go along with. And then they'd have to get more involved in being more socially responsible as well. The way you're less likely to see vandalism at night, like in Spain, or I'm guessing Portugal is the same, but sort of everyone goes for their stroll between 8 and 10 p.m. at night, and it's all gentle, and there's no lads vomiting in the corner and stuff like that. There are things that we could adapt to anything, but we've proven we can adapt to everything.
Yeah, just get rid of the rain, put a roof in the country.
Oh, stop!
That would be nice.
You're pissing me off now with the weather there.
I was over in Japan last year, and there's an awful lot of I think it was when I was in Tokyo, and maybe in Osaka too. Like a lot of the central parts of the city, the shopping streets are all covered, and it makes so much sense. It would make a lot of sense in Ireland, wouldn't it? To have all the central areas to have a roof over them. So to have these main arteries that have a roof that allows you to go out and go shopping and have your lunch, whatever, and not worry about the rain.
You'd think for a country like ours that should be used to the rain would come up with systems like that, no different than, say, the Mediterranean countries cater for the heat in their outdoor shopping malls, and the Scandinavian countries cope with the snow and all that. But I mean, I think our biggest achievements rain-wise was the Temple Bar Meeting Square, that structure that where they do the outdoor cinema screenings and the market is on. That's a fantastic piece of engineering.
Yeah.
More of that around the city would be great.
Yeah, Yeah. Well, I think generally, I don't like to be like giving out about Ireland from afar, but like I think generally,
Go for it, Luke. Go for it. We want to hear it.
well, I always think in Ireland that when you're walking in the street, if you look down, like it's a very good illustration of like Ireland, Irish sort of civil engineering planning, that like you never like every 5 meters, it's been dug across by a different, is it the water or it's the like broadband or the electricity, you have dug up the road, and it's not like that in the continent. It's not like that in France or Spain or Germany, wherever.
Yeah, you wouldn't see the jumping that you see here.
Everyone goes in, they say, okay, well, now we're going to sort of repave this street. Anyone has to put services in, you go ahead and you do it, and you can't just be coming along and whatever. And there's that sort of hodgepodge type sort of mentality is in sort of civil architecture and just sort of sort of how people sort of are taken care of.
What though? If the Paddies make a pledge to be better behaved, I think we'd fit right in.
Yeah.
And then what do you mean by that now? I'm going to jump on that for a second. What do you mean by that now?
Well, I mean, we won't be dumping our rubbish, at the end at public bins and stuff like that. And we won't be leaving our cans everywhere. Well, be realistic. I mean, the amount of bins you'd see at the moment that even though they're full, people are still putting stuff on it or around there. Yeah. That wouldn't happen in Spain. It wouldn't happen in France. It wouldn't happen
hang on, and the reason it wouldn't happen in Spain,
I've seen it happen here,
and the reason it doesn't happen in Spain is because bins are collected daily in Spain. They're not collected. I'm talking about residential bins. So in where I go, the bin is collected every single day, and there's huge. Now it's a communal system. Everyone throws their refuse in these big, huge containers on the streets, and they're everywhere, and it's collected daily. So you never see that case of shite being dumped outside of bins.
But I think isn't the problem though, Vanessa, like what you're talking about is not the problem. I mean, people turn up and they expect a thing to be collected where they're told to bring it to be collected. They say it's not here. Well, I might as well leave it. And when they empty this, they'll take this one too, right? That's the thinking. And I think more the problem is that the systems are probably not strong enough to sort of manage.
Yeah, we lost that sort of the I suppose when the local authorities started to get defunded.
Yeah.
We lost that response, the sort of the commitment to have that done, because there's actually a Bring Centre quite close to here, and it's closed now since the lockdown. And I see bins thrown over it, rubbish bins thrown over it. And if I see anyone there, I beat the horn or I call them out on it, or I pretend to take out the phone. And they get ready to run away. And look, we're talking about as if we're bold. I mean, it's like if we were to be kind of a more singular entity, EU. I suppose if Johnny Keenan was here, he'd be roaring about our identity and culture. I don't think there's ever a fear of the Paddies losing their identity or culture, no matter where they end up in the world. But I think there is to JDF's question, if there was a referendum, like would we adopt a more European a group sort of legislator, I think the Irish would vote for it. I think they would.
Maybe on the third attempt. If we're bribed with something. An extra 2 days public holidays, we might vote for it.
Eventually we definitely would, yeah.
Yeah. But just on that, actually, Brexit is in the news again because Boris is using Northern Ireland as leverage.
Oh, God, Sammy.
Speaking of opportunity, what's your kind of views on the solidarity in the EU and the handling of Brexit now? Do you think the EU is kind of like, fuck this with dealing with Britain and being more direct, or do you think that the EU is kicking the can? Because it seems to be a lot of posturing even behind the scenes. I know it's buried in the news because of COVID, but what are you feeling about that?
I think doesn't it make it less of a big deal for the EU? The EU sort of has a lot of smoke and mirrors going on now, and they can afford to be an asshole about it and say, no, come back. You're the one that wants out. Come back when you're sort of give us what we want. They probably have the cards. I'd say the EU more than the UK.
But I would agree that the EU are under no pressure at all.
Yeah.
But did you not find Barnier was being a bit of a prick about Boris? Kind of. Did you think he was being a bit sneery and a bit condescending?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like,
he's a bit like that anyway. But like,
I know, but
Probably-
whether you like Boris or not, actually, I said this evening. I think he was seeing. They showed. I think it was Channel 4 or something. They showed a clip of him going around with his newspaper and his shorts. It kind of was. He must have gone out to buy the newspapers and was coming back, and he was in his shorts and flip flops or something like that. And I was like, people can laugh all they like. Like they knew he was. Do you know what it was? He got cleared of being of any conflict of interest when he was mayor of London with this American businesswoman, promoting her business, her business getting some contract or something, and they were apparently in the middle of an intimate relationship. But you could actually see there was a bit of chemistry between them in the footage, and then they showed him in his flip-flops and his shorts, and I said like. But they knew what they were getting when they elected him into Westminster. And they knew what they were getting. Look at your man. And they knew what they were getting when he ran for election as recently as December. And they gave him an 80-seat majority. So Boris can go tell Barnier to go fuck off, quite frankly. And he probably should. The way I just found, I thought Barnier's manners were a bit unnecessary, but it's as recently as December.
We're going to have to interrupt you there, Vanessa.
What's going on? He's going to swim, is he?
Darth Vader has joined the panel. Derek, welcome all the way from sunny California. Yourself and Luke, look at the two he's out in the sunshine. Luke in his short sleeve shirt and you out in the sun. What's going on, Derek?
And look, lads,
hi Neil, hi Vanessa, hi everybody.
Yeah. You listen, between Trinity now, letting us know you all went to Trinity, and there he is with his Harvard t-shirt, lad.
High level stuff here, Vanessa. I was in Harvard once for a weekend last summer. It was.
In there brought the t-shirt, is it?
He qualified. He did a master's in Harvard in a week.
In a weekend. Listen, I'll just give you a look around, see what you can see here.
What have you been up to, Derek?
What's Target? You going into Target to do the shopping?
We're going into Target to get a present for a birthday party. We're going on a drive-by birthday party. But you can see the car park here is fairly full. It's about half full. Just to give you an idea of what's happening.
Social distancing going on there, Derek, or are the masks mandatory?
Mask mandatory for the stores, yeah. You have to wear the mask in the store. Sometimes there's a queue to into this place. You have to social distance in a queue. But today it looks like it's fairly good. There's no queues, so just through in.
You'll probably be asked to switch off the camera if you go inside that there, Derek. Just bear that in mind.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, if you went to the bank now, would you have to wear the face mask? Would you not be worried if you worked in a bank and have all these people coming in masks in their faces?
It definitely feels weird, yeah. Listen, come here, I'm sorry I missed out today. I just said I'd give you a quick look of how it's happening around here. But I'll probably better off jump off and let you continue.
Should top back in after you've done the shopping. Show us what you bought.
Well, it's for the 10-year-old's birthday. We're having a drive-by birthday, so I might maybe I'll on the way back in the car I might log in again and just show you what we're doing. Show you a bit around the area.
Oh yeah, be cool. Make us all jealous. But your man there's telling us what the lovely weather they have in Porto. And see Neil moved house. Did you hear? See Neil's moved house.
Derek, put a bit of sun cream on your forehead there. You're gonna burn.
Oh, I fry. I'm like a beetroot,
Have you got your cycle shorts on?
Here's my daughter.
Oh, hello.
So she's here with us. Right, guys, I'll jump off. We'll go in here and get this present, and we'll talk to you in a bit, okay?
Have fun.
That's so cool. That is rock and roll, lads. Hey, man. you never talk about.
Maybe next week, if you want, I could bring you all for a virtual dinner, right? You can see what it's like to be in a restaurant.
Oh, listen, Luke, we'll just stop.
That's mean now. That is
mean.
That's
Do you
true.
know, I've only had one takeaway dinner since this whole thing happened, and it was from a restaurant. It wasn't even a bag of chips. It was from a restaurant.
What did you get?
There's a place in Ranelagh. I'm not in any way affiliated with them. There's a place called Gigi's in Ranelagh, and they have a menu. You can go pick it up. They don't do deliveries, but you can pick it up, and it's Italian, and it's delicious. I'm not affiliated with them, but I'm just going to say that. I
Well,
really
now
like it
there's
there.
been one takeout here since the lockdown, whatever, since February, which is a record in itself with this house. But it was just the Chinese man up the road, spice bags.
Well, I've had I had roast chicken today. I had roast ham yesterday. I'm roasting nearly all the dinners that I can have. I'm having a Sunday roast nearly every day. And there
then
with the
you're
weighing
baking bread
scales.
at the same time.
Oh, I made lemon drizzle cake the other day.
He did.
I love lemon drizzle cake.
Here's my baking tip is if you don't want to use caster sugar, substitute for maple syrup. You use less product for the same taste. So yeah, I use maple syrup instead of caster sugar for that more kind of authentic homemade
Sounds good.
feeling.
And did you...
But if you don't talk about sourdough, Vanessa. I'm done talking about sourdough. I don't want to hear about sourdough. I don't ever see. I only want to eat sourdough that's made in the shop. I don't want to be seeing anyone's home creation.
And I actually was going to buy you the San Francisco starter. Like viewers, I don't know if you realize you could actually buy the historic starters because some of them are 100 years old.
I saw that. You can buy sourdough starter that's over 100 years old. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, well, I would, because I remember in years when I was a child, my mother used to buy the live yeast in Rochester supermarket. Now it's long gone, but they used to there was like a section where they had the yeast, the fresh yeast, because it was live. The dried yeast you see in the sachets, that's like a creation of the late 1800s.
Well, do you know what it is?
The Industrial Revolution.
Because I've always loved sourdough, and after my miserable attempt at making it and seeing everyone else posting their pictures, it's like someone's after stealing your girlfriend. And not only do they live in your neighborhood, they keep posting pictures and sticking it in your mailbox. That's what it's like with all the sourdough stuff. So
yeah, but you see, they have starters that are years old and they're rancid.
But that's the whole idea.
Yes. So yeah, they were building it up. Don't take. But I don't know what you were doing a sourdough for your first bake. I told you to do a soda bread. I do soda breads here every second day. If that.
You buy soda bread mix in the shop and you stick water in it. There's no great creation.
But that's all there is to it here. It's flour, salt, bicarb,
when I made that lemon drizzle cake, I was buying polenta. I was buying all the ingredients. There was nothing out of a pack. It was all homemade, mixed in a bowl and stuck in the oven.
Well, I made I call them lemon fizzle squares, right? Do the squares. And I actually, did you see what I sent you with the lemon balm, the herb in it?
I did. Now, bear in mind, people out there won't know what we're talking about, but yeah. So, Vanessa, it's like your friend who sends you porn randomly on WhatsApp every now and then. Vanessa does that with home baked goods.
I don't send him pornography.
She's food porn. She sends food porn. Luke's disgusted.
No, Neil, go into Neil's Twitter account, viewers, and you'll see he was acting the bollocks the other day, telling us he'd all the housework done, all his jobs done, ham baked and lemon drizzle cake and all this. And then he sent a photograph of the lemon drizzle cake. So I said, here, I'll have to do, I just got the goo on me then to do lemon cake. So I did it. And then I sent him back a picture. But mine is different because mine has lemon and lemon balm, the herb in it. And it fizzles on your tongue.
Here. Do you know what?
I'll actually bring in a slice now. I'll bring in a slice. Here, I'll give you a good joke. Do you know the ginger cake I made a few weeks ago for you, the cider ginger cake?
Yeah.
So I was saying to the teenager about, did you like it? What did you think of it? And she was saying she couldn't eat it. She said, you've seen photographs of my girl, right? She says, it'd be like eating gingers. It'd be like being a cannibal.
You see, this is why one of the reasons I can't wait for the pandemic to be over, so we aren't at home baking feckin' bread and cakes.
My neighbours are going bananas.
I actually have a brother who's a chef, and so I get the same service from him in terms of he sends me photos of things that he's making, and then I'm foolish enough to show my girlfriend, and she then tells me that, oh, I should make that. So that's the mistake I make. So I didn't have to like make a chef level meal because I've shown her this photo that my little brother could make. So obviously I could make as well, and that's the whole cycle I get into. So yeah, best not
We
to
go back to the wedding planning there for a
Well,
sec.
hang on. Are you making caldo verde? Is that now your claim to fame? You're the best Irish made caldo verde in the whole of Portugal.
beef noodle ramen was what I got this week. So I had to I got a very special sort of recipe for that. So I have to work on that. That's be next week's expectation.
Here.
So a few more comments from the chat pit. There's a lot of talk about the BMW, Vanessa.
But actually, if we're doing plugs, do you know what I'd love to? I'd love to be able to go to Germany and buy a Lexus for this, bring it back here, and have a Lexus car in my driveway. Lexus.
I think here in Portugal, the Portuguese government were taken to Europe about having they had some VRT type tax, and they were basically told like they had to not only stop it, but like pay back any back taxes due. So maybe there's some hope for Ireland yet, because it's kind of crazy, right? The whole principle of Europe is things like that you should be able to buy a car in one state and bring it to another.
I think it did come up in the EU with Ireland a few years ago. I'm just speaking from memory, and Ireland was able to justify it.
Well, it's the right and left hand drive thing as well. They were using that, but then you see you could buy a Lexus in Australia cheaper than you can buy a Lexus here. So that didn't add up. It was just, it's a bit like licenses. We have to renew our licenses every 10 years and they have a number, but yet our cars have a registration plate that we pay for as well. When you buy a new car, it has a reg. In actual fact, we don't need regs at all. We have a license on our license, and that should be our plate, and that should travel with us no matter what we're fucking driving.
Makes sense, yeah.
Like it's jobs for the boys. Like it's quango after quango, as they say. Like since the foundation of the state, whenever there was an issue to be dealt with or an admin thing cropped up as the state evolved and grew up and matured, they'd form a committee and then form a quango to manage it.
Yeah,
it's perhaps an Irish thing. I'm just saying there, Janie's given out to me about buttermilk. Yes, of course it is buttermilk. I was only testing you.
Also,
here, I go to bring in. I'm going to leave you for 1 minute. I'll bring in some lemon drizzle cake.
So, let me see. Sheila Figs Mars is of the view this lockdown is all about sex. Well, clearly Sheila Figs Mars is not married. So there. So while Vanessa's going off, we should just end the show now, and she'll come back to an empty room. So in terms of this weekend, then, Luke. So just to kind of make me feel even more bad. So how's the weekend looking in terms of your social activity and what you can do and what
I suppose the thing like that is like the thing that I won't be bragging about is that they haven't actually opened the beaches yet. So it's like 6th of June before the beaches open, so you can't actually go to the beach. So I mean, but at the same time, there's fairly free movement. Like they were doing a thing on bank holiday weekends. You couldn't go between different areas, so the police would be sort of asking you if you're going to. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty much free movement. Like this weekend, we're looking at maybe sort of going somewhere relatively close. Again, because the tourists aren't here, it's actually obviously quite cheap to travel internally because we're, some of the few people that are traveling around. Because they're usually dealing with, I mean, Porto's population, I think, triples usually during the summer, and that's obviously not going to happen this year. So, Porto and its surrounds, there's lots of beautiful, like you can go on a train from Porto up the Douro Valley. There's a train that goes right up along the river, beside the river, and you've got these wine groves like beside the river that like have actually been growing there since Roman times. Some of the vines. So you've got this beautiful sort of very well cultivated and very scenic sort of pathway with nice little place to stop along the way. So it's lovely.
Nice. Meanwhile, can't do any of that. Although I think the people were people out swimming, Vanessa, and the guards were there today. Is that what your picture is, or is that the McDonald's?
Oh, the picture. No, that's the McDonald's, and I deliberately put it up to remind myself to kind of link about how it's McDonald's and the big chains that opened up, and not the.
Somebody said it online today, and apologies for not remembering the name, but the whole thing that as of the other day, you could get a Big Mac in Dublin, or in Ireland, but you can't get a breast scan, and it's a fair comment. I mean, there was a video doing the rounds when I presume it was RTE were setting up their cameras to shoot the piece, and people honking their horns, the aggression on the street. It was like insane.
Well, I give you another example. Like it occurred to me as well. I actually sent my notes for this evening about the testing. They're still not up to the level we were promised back in February, March. And I think they should give the testing over to the Department of Agriculture, because you can get a herd tested for TB within 24 hours. So I think they should have handed it over to the Department of Ag.
Just thinking there, Neil, just to follow up on what I was saying there, I was just thinking there that, as well as, like I said, the restaurants are opening, whatever. I mean, it's not all, the sunshine here, but one thing I would say is that, there's a lot of positives about, Ireland these days relative to how it was and whatever. I mean, Portugal is very much it's a bit like Ireland was in the 80s, it's sort of, it hasn't really developed yet economically. And there is the tourism, but that's not kind of screwed now. And even like walking around town, it's nice to be able to go to a restaurant. But we were out going for a walk around town, and two different people came up and just asked for money. Sort of, it's starting to hit home the sort of cost. And I mean, it's something that it's in the air. I think there's a lot to. I mean, like I said, sunshine here, but. There's a lot to be positive about in Ireland. When the pandemic lifts, things will still be very good, and it won't take long to recover. I think somewhere like Portugal will even be hit a lot worse than Spain. Spain is relatively rich compared to Portugal. Portugal has, I think, about like a third of Irish average income. Basically, if you're on an average industrial wage here, you're on the equivalent of getting the dole in Ireland. And so that combined with losing 25% of the jobs through tourism is going to be difficult. And it's something that I'm very conscious of. I'm, looking at spending the next few months actually trying to do some work to maybe sort of help that situation a little bit, trying to set up some things which will maybe be sort of job generative. Because it is for the people sort of who are sort of at the thin edge of that wedge, it's very difficult,
Yeah, but it's fair. I think just to talk about Spain, Spain is so large that certainly the region I visit regularly is the Costa Blanca, which is heavily a tourist region. But if you look at that area from, if you look at the Valencia region as such, and then the Malaga area, which are heavily relying on tourism, they're essentially ravaged. So they're relying on, the money from Madrid and Barcelona. But that's why they're eager to open up their borders and all the rest. But looking at Ireland, I mean, one of the peeves I have, and we may have spoken about this in the show last week, though, is I'm finding occasional commentary from Leo and from Harris incredibly patronizing. Leo has talked about the scroungers on the COVID payment, which is a horrible thing to be saying, given, it's only recently that certain elements of the economy have reopened and people are going back to work. But in Leo's own words, there's people in certain industries that are going to have to reskill. There's industries that will never recover. And it's a disgusting comment to make, but he has this trend of doing that. Similarly, Harris with some of his comment, I mean, the dickying up the curtains thing that he said, like, I mean, fuck off. I mean, I heard that and it was like, the vast majority of people are compliant and want to get through this period, and to be making comments like that. If someone wants to order a pair of curtains off Amazon or order it off a local business and have it delivered, let them do that. And as daft as it was, people queuing up outside the Woodies of the world and the BZQs of the world when they reopened, I don't know why anyone would do it, but at the same time, it highlights how desperate people are getting. My own industry that I'm in is ravaged because social distancing means we can't all get in a room, and that's even before I talk about getting on stage, which God knows when will happen. In Ireland, we've been doing stuff virtually, which is only as entertaining as engaging to a certain point. And so I'm not alone. There's people in that, and it's not a woe is me type of thing. We're all trying to think about ways of how we deal with that. But certainly from an education and training perspective, we're always going to need that. So there will have to be a middle ground or some kind of compromise, or not compromise, but some kind of way of dealing with that. So yeah, these comments are very patronizing. And then the thoughts of, well, we can have staycations in the summer. Well, sorry if that doesn't appeal to me, to be in a social distance pub in some beautiful part of the country in the West. I'm not going to name place because I'm not singling anyone out, but if, boy,
buy a mobile home, buy a caravan.
No, I'll save me money till I can get back on a feckin' plane, and I'll go off and I'll visit Luke and I'll visit all the cooler people. But one thing is definitely for sure is none of us will be going to America in the foreseeable future, regardless of what happens in Europe.
Well, I tell you, if I was allowed to go to that thing, I was going to go. I'd be gone. I'd go in the morning.
Well, so would I, but I think it's the thing we won't be allowed. We won't be allowed.
So we're stuck going to Porto for Luke. So let's talk about the wedding planning now. Luke, is it a full sit-down dinner now with the
I know. Would you give him a break? I
want to know what's going on. I want to know what.
Are you married, Vanessa?
I am.
You never tell me about all this. Tell us more, right? So what's your husband's name? What does he do? Tell us more about this.
No, I don't discuss my private life at all.
Well, yeah.
You're the one who announced your wedding. You're the one who announced your wedding.
Yeah.
He did. He announced the wedding to his friends and family. He did come on Broadsheet and say, "Listen, I want everyone's attention for a moment."
Yeah. All right. No, I tell you, do you know what I was dying to know actually is I just seen that message now. Yeah.
I'll tell you the.
No, do you know what I really want to know? Right? What's the ring like? Is there a big rocker of a?
It's a ceremonial ring. It was very simple.
Oh, what do you mean simple now?
What do you mean, oh, Vanessa? What do you mean, oh?
Well, the way he says, oh, it's just the same. I mean, is it?
Do you know what this is, Luke? This is jealousy from Vanessa. Vanessa's going, I miss those days.
I'm asking, these are the questions the women of Ireland want to know.
Yeah, well.
But if the women of Ireland want to know this, they can join the chat pit, or they can message the site, or they can reach out to Luke directly and ask the questions. Then happens to ask
sort of things I'm very happy to answer in person, Vanessa.
Oh, grand. Well, I'll have to wait.
What you have to do is you have to make it over to Porto for a pre-wedding trip where you actually ask me the questions, and I'll give you all the info. Then you decide whether you want to come back.
I think we should do a show once we're allowed to do a show in your
but
house.
This is it. Hang on now. This is what they're saying. We can go as long as it's stop and go. So if we're there on work.
Yeah, but I think Ryanair are starting up Porto to Stansted flights next week actually. So there you go.
Dublin.
Yeah, you can go Dublin, Stansted, Porto. You'll be here in a day.
Well, now it's funny you should mention that because I'm hearing people talking about ways of getting around the mandatory quarantine that's going to happen in Ireland by flying from Belfast. Fly from Belfast, return, because we don't do the quarantine for people visiting from the north. And some people are talking about, well, if they can fly from Belfast, they skip the 14 days. Broadsheet isn't suggesting anyone does that. I'm only sharing what I heard.
Everyone would die.
So, but before we come to a close, I did want to share some piece of news that I thought was exciting. That was nothing to do with coronavirus. Oh, would you look at this? Here, she fucking had to do it, Vanessa, didn't you? You had to bring cake on the show.
I did. There's my lemon drizzle sponge. You could probably see the shine on the sugary.
Show off.
Look, and that's from my garden. The lemon balm that you see in it. See the bits of green in it. It's from my garden. Anyway, sorry. Had to do it. I have to eat it now.
You have to eat it. Don't eat it on the air. So I thought this was interesting. Nothing to do with anything that's going on. But NASA scientists they have evidence now. They detected evidence that there's a parallel universe to our own where time runs backwards. Could you imagine now if you found a doorway into that universe, you could travel back and you'll be moving backwards through time. So there's a Vanessa Foran and a Luke Brennan who are currently who started life as an old person like that Benjamin Button thing and are currently aging, getting younger. What would you say to that now, Vanessa? There's a person out there, you're out there somewhere getting younger.
Jesus, where am I? Would you ever catch up with me? Like, what about younger? Are you thinner than me?
You just have to visit us.
If that's the case, there's probably an infinite number of Vanessas, and that's a scary thought in itself, right?
It's a very scary thought. Very scary thought, Vanessa.
You hurt my feelings.
No, I mean that in the same way that I would find it a scary thought that there'd be an infinite number of me. I mean, like I would lose my identity, and the world would be a smaller place, maybe bigger. I don't know.
But Luke,
is this a film or something? Now you're getting to.
No, but Luke, by that understanding, that also means there's a universe out there where you and Vanessa are married.
Yeah, probably, and equally yourself and Vanessa.
That's true. And there's also a universe where you bought Vanessa that ring, and she was very happy. She's very happy with it.
You're after.
That's science, Vanessa. That's science.
Just stop it. Stop it.
On that note, what's your predictions for the next week? What are we going to be talking about next week?
Are you asking me or Luke there? Are you asking the younger Vanessa waiting to catch up with the current Vanessa? Is it the wishful thinking Vanessa?
Whichever Vanessa wants to reply can reply.
Well, I tell you, I have just this worry, I suppose, for myself that I've this fear now we're getting to a point of no return. Like this is what our fifth show back is, a fourth of, and it's been spent on the same topics, and it's important, and we're evolving the discussion as well, and we're widening it now to include the EU and that. But I just have we're still effectively at home and in lockdown, and I'm just at this point of the comfort, right? I found myself now going to the second and almost third morning for a shower. If you're at home, like it's not like you're stinking or I'm jogging or anything, and like and a few weeks ago I admitted to myself first that I was a high maintenance bitch, but the nails and the hair and having to resort to a razor, and I tried doing my own eyebrows, and I kind of did a bit of a gangster thing with my eyebrows there, and I've gone from the general grooming lady parts, getting to the stage of being Jerry Adams' beard to being more Grizzly Adams' beard. And I'm just wondering, I'm just afraid that I might just get used to this type of living. And that's my big fear of the next week, because I'm actually almost getting to live with stuff now.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Without complaining.
Of like habits and routines, that, like a lot of them are being broken. I mean, I wonder about things like bigger things like sport, like I wonder, will people be as interested now that they're out of the routine of having sport in their lives? Will they sort of switch back in to sort of, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if even like in 3 years' time, there's only half as many people tuning in or turning up for matches or whatever, I think, when you break someone's routine like that, it makes a big difference.
Well, I just know from the GA forums that they're killing each other trying to get back on the pitch, and they're complaining that the pitches are actually, the grounds are closed, and the communities had gone to so much work to develop them, and they feel that they should be open even for lads to walk around and kick a ball. And I have a feeling that will all relax very, very shortly, I suppose, with the weather being good. But my big worry is that there's just this new norm. But I've stopped complaining. Have you noticed?
I know you haven't. We can definitely confirm you haven't.
Oh, gee, I have to get my hair done again. We'll have to kind of go down on the.
From my own perspective, I think education is still going to be topping the news for the next week. I do think as well that maybe not in the next week, but we are going to reach a point from a a non-COVID health perspective that somebody's going to have a story about not getting tested for a cancer or something. And, I'm not saying it's the same as a cervical scandal, but something it's inevitable at this point that somebody's not being tested for something. Similarly, with opticians reopening on the 18th of May, they're unable to do certain tests like the glaucoma test because of social distancing reasons. So it's inevitable we will reach a point where somebody will have a story that they had glaucoma, could be tested by the optician, or somebody should have had a cancer scan, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So that's inevitable. It's going to happen. But I probably think that's going to be later in the summer before we hear about things like that. But in non-COVID news, we do have an update on the mysterious John Preposterous Ryan, and his whereabouts. He was hunted down over the past week, and we did manage to get a few words with him, and he assures us that he is going to come back next week. But he feels that the demand from the Broadsheet audience and trolls is not necessarily there. He feels people don't want him to come back. So we're reaching out to you, Broadsheet readers, trolls, listeners, and haters. Get in touch and let us know that you want John Ryan to come back, because he feels you don't want him to come back. So we want to hear from you. So do let us know. And Derek is just in time to give his weekly prediction. We're just about to go, Derek. You're stuck in traffic. I hope you're using the hands-free kit there.
What's that thing with Annika Rice? Where
challenge.
Oh yeah. Show us your arse.
50 seconds, Derek. He's in the blue car.
I missed that. Was it?
You're Annika Rice. You're the new Annika Rice. Go on, you do that bit again, Luke.
I was saying you've got 15 seconds. Go in and find a White House and someone with blue hair.
Very good. But
nice to see the sunshine there.
Yes, it's grand. It's grand.
You're pissing me off now, Luke. Shut up.
You missed the lemon cake, Derek, but tell us this, because we're just wrapping up, Derek. Tell us this. What's your predictions for the next week?
War with China.
Well, no, you'll have war with China. We don't be dragging us into it.
I don't know. More the same, Neil. More the same. It really is Groundhog Day. Things are starting up a little bit. Got to play a little bit of golf, which is good. We had a social distance birthday party for a guy who turned 50. We gathered in the back garden. We're all spaced out. But it was just good to have the social correction. What's coming next? Don't know. It's hard to know. Trump is becoming more deranged every day. He comes out with more crazy stuff every day. He's just deflecting, throwing blame, trying to throw enough mud, see what sticks on at Obama, at Biden, or whoever. And I just done with it now. I don't know what's happening in the state of Georgia, which is opened back up fully, and yet their numbers are down. Something very fishy, that, as far as I'm concerned.
But Denmark is open up fully and their numbers are down.
Yeah, but Denmark are sensible. I don't understand how it goes against the science to say that you can be open up fully and your numbers go down. I can't get my head around it.
Yeah.
It does sound kind of dodgy. But what the one thing that I would like next week, right, is I want to be like you, Derek. I want to have my own cameraman.
I got in trouble for showing her on the video. But at least her face was covered, She told me she objected to
use of her image.
A celebrity.
And now you're using her as cheap labor to be your cameraman while you're driving your car.
Well, she's supposed to be showing you the road so you can get an idea of the traffic. You can show them the road just to see
That's the sky. That's the sky.
But the pylons are lovely. The traffic lights are lovely.
Derek, unless I'm mistaken, wearing earbuds are illegal in the state of California.
Are they?
Yeah.
Well, I take it out. I passed my driving test, so I didn't ask that question.
There you go. Breaking the law on Broadsheet on the telly. That's how we roll.
Weird. The other bloody serious thing that's going on over here is the racism, the way the cops are treating black people. I know it's nothing new, but like the amount of stories of like black people getting shot by the police or by vigilantes or they're suspected burglars. It's like it's grossly underreported and it's absolutely shocking. I mean, the race issue here, I think, it's a tinderbox that's about to explode, that could explode between the lunatics, the MAGA hats with their second rights amendments and want to open up everything immediately, and the racism that black people are receiving, it could ignite. I'm concerned that about the atmosphere that's here at the moment. Again, not where we are, not in California, but at least not in Northern California, but just from what stories are coming from around the States, and what's happening. And Trump he's fueling it. He needs his base to have any chance to get re-elected next year, and he'll do whatever it takes to try and ignite it. The more chaos, the better for him in some regards.
I think he's gone there.
I think we've lost you, Derek. I think the cops are cracking down on you talking.
It's those earbuds.
I think we've lost Derek, so I think we'll call it time there, folks.
Can we just do some telly?
Sure. Listen, they're all gone to bed.
Just 2 minutes, right? Derek, you'd like this. I've actually, one of the things I've done this week is I think I've actually completed a lockdown challenge, and that is I finally watched Ozarks. Got to the end of Ozarks. Well, the third series, got to the end of it. I kind of forced myself to watch it because I knew what was happening all along. So I got to the end of it. So I feel I've completed one of these lockdown challenges anyway. I don't know what the next one is. But one of the shows I wanted to mention, because I saw it on the Amazon, is Mozart in the Jungle. And I watched it when it first launched because the teenager is a musician, so she was into it. And it's actually a fabulous show. And it's short. They're only half-hour shows. But it's very unique, it's very different, and the performances are lovely in it. So I'd recommend that to anybody. It's on the Amazon Prime anyway, and it's actually one of the first shows Amazon did, and it won them a Grammy, but they only did 4 seasons. But you'll enjoy it. It's called Mozart in the Village. And Neil, you're going to like this. I watched one of your movies the other night.
What did you watch?
Ready Player One.
Oh, that's not one of my movies. Would you get out of that garden?
You love that shit.
There was a great book.
Well, actually, that's how I ended up watching it, because the teenager read the book and she wanted to put it on. So I watched it. And you know what? It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it's a good story. Yeah.
I got into it, and there was the human thing at the end of it all. So now, see, I watched it especially for you because I know you'd have liked me to watch it.
Well,
I'll give you a shared experience.
I'll give you a bit of trivia there. Myself and the fiance, first date, we went to see that in the cinema.
Well, it was hardly a date night movie. Jesus.
Vanessa, would you stop that? Vanessa just wants to beat people under Cleary's clock, and that's the only way you can find.
Well, I'm an old-fashioned girl. And come here to me. Have you watched Killing Eve yet?
No, but I'm hearing fantastic things about it.
I went to watch it the other night, and I'm going, Jesus, who's that? What's happened there? I realised I was watching season 3. I thought I was watching season 2. I never watched season 2. So I have to go back and I have to wait. Everyone, stop watching it. Wait for me to catch up with you.
Yeah, well, I will mention one show as soon as you mention it. If someone's looking for some light entertainment, there's a comedy, and the episodes are short on Netflix called Working Moms. It's created by Ivan Reitman's daughter. Ivan Reitman famously made Ghostbusters. Oh God, it's Catherine Reitman, isn't it? Oh, don't be wrong, Neil. Don't be wrong. I think it's Catherine
Working
Reitman.
Moms.
Working Moms. It's excellent. Actually, it's really really good. The number of seasons of Catherine Reitman. It's number of seasons of it up on Netflix. They're about 20 minutes long each episode, but it's very very good. We're checking it.
It's on the Amazon. It is.
It's on Netflix.
Oh, Netflix. Okay.
Yeah.
Just to back up, actually, Derek mentioned Kim's Convenience, the Canadian show.
Oh yeah.
I've been watching that. It's very good.
Do you? I kind of start getting annoyed at it. I could watch it again now. I could sit down and watch it again. But it's very different, and the performances are hilarious, aren't they? Jodie goes, "Stop. Oh, punty.
Yeah. Very good.
On that note.
No, I'm not finished.
Okay. Look, Luke wants to go to bed.
Yeah, well, I'm just. Billions is back, folks, and it's one of my favorites. And I think one of the best female roles ever written is Wendy Rhodes, and she's playing a blinder. I'm 3 episodes in, so Billions, absolutely one of the best shows ever written, I think. Well, for women anyway. And so my tip is Mozart in the Jungle. You'll really enjoy it. And movie to absolutely stay away from, Greed. Much as I love Steve Coogan, and I think he's incredibly talented and he can play any part, this was just the biggest heap of shite. It was literally like a gang of them got together so they could go on the piss in Greece and just threw this movie together.
Oh, wouldn't it be great to be going on the piss in Greece?
We could do a movie in Porto. We could probably get tax relief for it.
We're done. Right, we're going. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Check out the sheet tomorrow. Yada yada yada. Get in touch if you want to.
Yada yada yada. You're not an American now.
They're all well tuned out at this stage. They're all gone to their beds. No one stays up this late to watch the show. Big thanks to everyone. Sheila Figs Mars said check out Hail Caesar on Netflix. Big shout out to everyone who was in the chat bit tonight. Sheila Figs Mars, I don't even know if I'm saying that right. John Toohey, Janet, JDF Reality. Who else do we have it there? And I just apologize. Joe Lames and Vanessa. Oh, that's you, Vanessa. So big thanks to you all.
Was I in the chat bit?
You were in the chat bit. Back on the sheet tomorrow. Yada yada yada. We'll be back next week with more telling you about how the world hasn't changed in a week and somebody's probably messed up somewhere and Leo said something that has offended us all. So good night. Enjoy your weekends. Don't break the rules and take care.
Good night, everyone.